That video is a powerful reminder. It's a powerful reminder of not only what occurred some 2,000 years ago as a historical fact, but it's also a powerful...
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Wow. Maybe God is trying to get my attention. I think that was just an unfortunate interruption. As I was trying to say, that video that you saw was a powerful reminder to us that God's timing, it's not our timing. And when God calls, that call is often an interruption, a big interruption. How do you handle interruptions? How about the little ones, the little pesky ones, like the child that won't stop pestering you? Ever happened? Yeah, especially troublesome when little pesky child's like 18. Or how about the big ones, when the boss comes in and pesters you and says, guess what, I got news for you, you need a new job. Because you don't have one here anymore. That'd be an interruption. Or here's one from yesterday. A funeral procession in the fast lane of I-70 just outside of Mid-Rivers Mall as you're trying to get to the mall to do some last-minute shopping. Or the interruption of you being in that funeral procession, headed to the cemetery to bury your beloved spouse of 68 years. How do you handle interruptions? Truth be told, I don't much care for them. I'm a systematic kind of guy. I am goal-oriented. I make lists. I know, I don't know if you need to check my man card for saying that, but I make lists. And I like to accomplish tasks so I can do what to my list? Check, check. So when interruptions come, someone a long time ago told me, you know, you are a pastor, and interruptions are going to come. In fact, this wise pastor said, the ministry is all about the interruptions. And I kind of chuckled about that because, 35, 40 minutes ago, as I was in my office preparing for my message, I got not one, not two, but 3 interruptions. And I don't think they realized I welcomed them and I laughed about it because I knew what I was going to talk about. Interruptions. Here's what some philosophers and great theologians say about interruptions. Other people's interruptions of your work are relatively insignificant compared with the countless times you interrupt yourself. Ever have trouble at work with interrupting yourself? Here's a good one. The average American worker has 50 interruptions a day, of which 70% have nothing to do with their work. For you math geeks or you non-math geeks, that's 35 interruptions in your workday that has nothing to do with what you're supposed to be doing. The last one, we must stop regarding unpleasant or unexpected things as interruptions of real life. The truth is that interruptions are real life. That last one was from C.S. Lewis. Ever heard of him? He was an atheist who was interrupted by God and went on to write some of the greatest theological writings of our era. So think about interruptions. That really might just summarize the whole Christmas story. Oh, I know it's angels and it's Jesus and it's all of the shepherds and that, but it's really about God interrupting the world. But not just the world, he interrupts 4 groups of people. 3 people in a group of people. The first of which is Zechariah. You ever heard of Zechariah? Yeah, maybe not. Most people think Mary is the start of the Christmas story, but really, Zechariah is the start of the Christmas story. I don't think any of us have Zechariah figurines set out in our Christmas stuff, do we? I mean, Zechariah gets a raw deal. But see, Zechariah was visited by an angel. And Zechariah was an old guy. And he and his wife had been praying for years upon years upon years that they might have a child. Just one. Just give us one. Here we find Zechariah as an old man, and he's doing his job faithfully. He was a priest. He was a pastor. And an angel of the Lord interrupts him and says, guess what, Zechariah? Your wife's going to have a baby. What? If you know the end of the story, Zechariah has disbelief, and for the next 40 weeks, he can't speak. Now, I know you might celebrate a preacher who can't speak for 40 weeks, but as a preacher, that's nothing to get excited about. God interrupted Zechariah's life when he least expected it. And Zechariah was preparing for a child. His name was John. We know him as John the Baptist. And his preparation was to be silent. But then there was also Mary who was interrupted. We know this story. We sing about this story. Mary, did you know? Did she? Did she know that when the angel Gabriel came to her, that this baby she was going to have was going to be the Messiah? I'm certain she had other plans. And yet the great faith of Mary is shown when she simply responds, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I am the Lord's servant. Notice what the angel said when he approached her. He didn't say, do this and I will bless you. He says, you are blessed. Now do this. I wonder if we couldn't take a page from Mary and look at every opportunity we can to serve God, to make a sacrifice on behalf of God as confirmation that, boy, have we been blessed. Then there's Joseph. Joseph had his life planned out. He was a carpenter. Measure twice, cut once. Boy, have I learned that the hard way. Joseph was a planner, and he knew the plan. Get married. Have children. Live a life that is honorable to God. And his plan was going just as he had planned, until his wife-to-be interrupts. Joseph, I'm pregnant. And then the angel of God comes to him and says, we interrupt this important plan of yours to bring you a very important message. Take Mary. Life isn't going to go as you planned. You are going to protect the blessed woman of all women. You're going to protect the very Son of God. You're going to be visited by strange men who smell. And wise men from the east. And you're going to run away from kings that want your life. No simple, quiet carpenter existence. God interrupted. There's a great axiom that says life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. Ever heard that before? Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I have a variation of that. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Finally, we have the shepherds. We talked about the shepherds here at our worship services this last weekend, but I asked the question, and I'm going to ask it again, why the shepherds? I mean, they are the lowest of the low. They were unethical people. They were considered unreliable, questionable in character. And did I mention they smell? And they were also considered unclean by the know-it-alls in Jerusalem. So they weren't allowed to come to worship. And here they are, the first people told. And they rejoice. But not before there was some fear. It isn't that the truth of real life? When God interrupts, there's some fear. There's some ups and there's some downs, and there's some joy. This is the shepherds. They go and they give praise to their God, and then they return to their work and continue to talk about who this God is. None of these things were a part of the plans that these people had. We know this story. And I got to tell you, this is my 21st or 22nd Christmas of preaching on Christmas Eve. What do you actually tell people on Christmas Eve? What are you going to talk about? Jesus? The birth? Maybe we'll throw in Moses for good measure. You know these stories. We've heard them time and time again. But maybe we would do well to contemplate how their stories connect with ours. How their stories speak to our stories as called children of God. How is God calling you this Christmas? Maybe He's calling you to be silent. Maybe you need to take the rest of 2016 and instead of spending time talking and texting and posting and proclaiming, you just remain silent. Maybe He's calling you to provide. Jesus, after He was a baby, grew up to be a man and said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me." Maybe this Christmas, God is calling you to start a life of giving rather than receiving. Could He be longing to hear what Mary had said out of your voice? "I am the Lord's servant." And then watch you follow through by providing for other people, by loving your neighbor as yourself. Maybe He's calling you to protect. Maybe God wants you to stand up and protect those who cannot protect themselves. Maybe God's calling you to protect yourself from a dysfunctional and abusive lifestyle or relationship. Maybe God is calling you to protect His name by actually living out the faith that you proclaim week in and week out. No matter what He might be calling you to do, I'm pretty sure that it's going to upset your plans. It is going to be an interruption that might even be scary.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Did I actually tell you to do that? May you see this Christmas as an opportunity to hear God's call and recognize that when He calls, there is always accompanying that call joy and passion and a purpose for your life. So what is your call this Christmas? May God give you ears to listen. Listen for the interruptions. For the sake and to the glory of God. Amen.